Hi guys, Jared here. Hope you all had a wonderful, fantastic weekend and that you're all rested up and ready to jump back into this market. We're going to see some pretty good little things happening this Sunday night, I think, and we'll have some pretty good activity coming up this week. And we had some good things happen last week, so we'll talk a little bit about that. This is actually take two. My last video ran over by an entire minute, and I couldn't cut off any part of it because it was all important information, so I have to kind of rephrase it and re-record. So take two. Here we go. What we're looking for here is we had a lot of movement on the euro last week. One thing that we saw happen on a big basis here was the euro went up fairly consistently last week while the pound went down. So with this nice little movement that we had, this big differential in movement, we saw some major movement happening on this euro pound. This guy skyrocketed like I've never seen it skyrocket before. It just went straight up, but we'll talk a little bit about some of the effects of those movements that we saw there. But let's look initially at what is going on right now. We see that the euro's got a very strong uptrend. It's been heading up nicely, but it's starting to look for a little bit of correction, a little bit of pullback. One thing that we've seen happening is the pairs that are moving nicely have been pulling quite a good distance away from weekly and daily moving averages here, and we see that this daily moving average, our 24 period moving average actually on the day chart, is starting to really pull behind quite a bit here, which is telling us that this euro may be getting slightly exhausted and maybe running a little bit out of steam because of how much kind of daylight we can see in there. If we look at the weekly chart here, we see that the euro has been heading up very nicely for a good 6-7 months now. It's basically just been heading straight up, and it has just been testing this 61.8 Fibonacci on the week chart, which even though it pushed up above, closed above, we could very just easily see a nice close back down below this. This candle could be the pushing below the 61.8 candle. So we're going to have to watch out for that one. One thing that I'm going to be very cautious of is any sells on this euro. It's got such a strong uptrend. I'm going to be very careful of any sells here. And we see a nice little break of just a couple of little hours of consolidation right here. And it may give us a run down. But we still do have the weekly pivot. We still have the gap. And the trend still is strong. Basically what I think we're going to see happen here is some consolidation, a little bit of correction back to our moving average, get back to the gap here a little bit, and back to some of these indicators to kind of recharge the batteries on this pair. It's pretty overextended and it's run a good long distance, so we have to be very careful on this one. So I will probably not be trading much on the euro this week. I don't think I'm going to be doing any sells yet. I think that's too risky, but I don't see any great opportunities to buy just yet. So I will be looking for a possible bounce off this gap, but I think that this pair could have some bigger runs down, but still unsafe runs. So we're going to kind of just play that one safe. However, I do think that this pound dollar does have some continuation of downward movement here, unlike the euro. I think this pair is picking up a little bit of momentum to the downside. We see, just kind of looking at our moving average here, we see that it's a little distance away here, but it's kind of working its way back down. It's kind of breaking some trend lines we have in here and just showing us some good downward movement. Now it's very much in its summer channel still. The euro dollar and the Aussie dollar are both broken out of the summer channel, but the pound definitely hasn't. But if we look closely enough here, we can see that the pound is actually starting to form a little bit of a head and shoulders. It's a rough looking one, but it's still a head and shoulders pattern here. We've got our head, we've got a shoulder to the left and a shoulder to the right, and then we've got our neckline down here at about the $1.60 level. So I think the pound has a very good chance of reaching that $1.60, and I'm actually aiming for that level. Whether it breaks or bounces, we'll kind of cross that bridge when we get there, but I think it's definitely going to be working its way down a little bit further. And in so doing, we will look for the initial break of the Friday low, our signature Sunday night trade right here. And so the Friday low technically was 162.28, and we saw that the opening candle just hopped down below there a little bit and gave us a pullback. And now it's just right at our daily pivot, right at the Dharma, right at the red line, and trying to work its way down. So I think we're going to have a nice little sell-off here on the pound dollar, so we'll be watching for that. If that starts selling off and the euro starts selling off, then that's not going to give us much to do with this euro pound. So we're going to really have to watch out for this guy. And I think that that we've got a nice little consolidation here on this euro pound, which moved up like absolute crazy last week. Just more than I've ever seen this pair move. So we have to really watch out for this one right here. One thing that I am concerned about on this euro pound is that it is very overextended, like to the max overextended. There is nothing but daylight between the moving average here and the market, and it's just so high up. The alligator's wide open. It's pulled as far away from the gap as we've seen happen in a long time. And I think we're probably up for a little bit of consolidation and even some correction back downward. One thing that we do have to look at also is that where the euro pound ended right here, about the 90.50 level, we have some pretty good resistance back in here, back in April and May. So I think that could kind of hold the market at this point and give it some pullbacks to the downside. So I will be looking for some potential selling opportunities on this one. Depending on if we can get a nice crossover on these various time frames here, but it is quite a distance away from the red line, so if we did get a crossover, pretty quick little crossover on this 1 hour chart, could take us back down, but most of all we're just kind of going to watch for a little bit of correction, and if it does break this high, could be a quick run, this 90.56 area, and if it pulls back down, then we'll just kind of hold out and wait out. Remember that the trend is our friend, and we want to stick with the buys on the dips. So if this thing dips down to the gap perhaps, or right around those areas there, I think that could start giving us some good buying opportunities, kind of this 8,900 area right down in there. Now, one that I'm watching kind of specifically right now is the New Zealand dollar. We see the New Zealand dollar and the Aussie dollar kind of doing similar things. They're both medium extended, and they've started to make the correction. We're kind of in the works of a small head and shoulders pattern, it looks like right here almost, but a very small one. But it is a little bit away from the moving average there. We see that 4 hour crossover is kind of starting to happen. Looks like it's in the works, and it's starting to break, or it has broken and kind of pulled back up a few times. The Friday low for our Sunday night trade. So even though it is heading into the gap, I think there might be a good little short-term profit to be had there. Nothing major though, because how far this thing will go through the gap is yet to be seen. But I think we will have a little short-term gain in there. Let's quickly look at what's on the calendar. Nothing too significant. Be careful trading the yen pairs. It's a bank holiday today, tomorrow, and the next day for the yen. And so that could mean that the markets take advantage of the yen being closed, or that it's just a total dud on all those yen pairs. So just watch out for those guys. Wednesday we have interest rate announcements for the US. We have meeting minutes for the UK. Those will be very important, so keep an eye on those. Basically what we're going to be looking for this week is, I'm staying out of the euro dollar right now and looking to buy on some dips, but I'm not going to be trading downward on this guy. Looking to take the break out of the Sunday night trade here on the pound dollar. Kind of watching the same thing on the Aussie dollar. Looking for the Sunday night break. It's already broken our low there, which was the approximately the 86.50 area, and it's just kind of really struggling in that area, but I'm not super confident on a sell on that one yet. I do feel a little bit better about a sell on the New Zealand dollar, and then the yen pairs I'm going to be very cautious with. They're right at those Friday highs, but with the market being closed in Japan, that could be pretty risky, so I'm going to kind of stay away from those. We see that all the pairs, the Japanese yen, or the dollar yen, the euro yen, Aussie yen, are all at those tops. But watch them. If they do break those high levels, like about 91.60 on the dollar yen, we see about 79.50 on the Aussie yen, and approximately 134.60 on the euro yen. Watch those, see where they go. And there could be some very nice movements upward from them, but just remember it is a bank holiday, so things can be a little bit choppy. So definitely keeping an eye on the euro dollar, looking to buy on some of those dips, keeping an eye on the pound dollar to sell, and we'll be looking at the euro pound for a break or a dip, but this one should have some good correction coming in place here. So just watch out for those. Good luck trading. We'll see you guys on the chat and in the webinar coming up Tuesday, which will cover a lot more of this information. Thanks guys, talk to you soon.